Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last panel for the conference. The panel is OTT MENA, and I'm very excited to welcome you, the speakers today. JP McCurley, that is Director and Chief Commercial Officer for Jawi TV. Abdul Naga, General Manager for View MENA. Mustafa Beckett, Managing Director, Watch It, and Danny Bates, Chief Commercial Officer, Starsplay. Thank you guys and welcome to the panel. So I'll start with the first question regarding content. We know that content is a major driver for customer acquisition and retention in the OTT business. And we have seen, a lot of different content strategy coming up in the arena of the players. From Arabic content, a mix of Western, Bollywood. So I would like to start addressing to JP. So what's your view on that, on the content strategy? And how you differentiate, from the other players with your proposition?
Yeah, sure. So great question. I think content is the business that we're in, and so everyone has a slightly different position on how they acquire and what they acquire, and it's largely targeted towards who you're going after and what niche you see yourselves as addressing. Jawi, as our background, we came from an operator investor standpoint, and so from that viewpoint, we think about ourselves as being an aggregator of content services, and to that extent, we've done deals with multiple other aggregators in the MENA region, and we bring their content into our platform. So we tend to have the catalog from Starsplay, we have assets from OSN. We have NBC available on platform. So we've got a number of different services that have already got their own content strategies. On top of that, we have the Jawi branded area, or our own direct acquisitions from producers. And where we are targeted is looking after the Arabic segment. So we're looking to specifically flesh out that catalog of all those assets that we get from our branded areas, and then top them up with a more niche and quite specific Arabic-based content proposition.
Okay. Any other comment from the gentleman?
I can talk about View and View. So View is predominantly we're quite different than a lot of the other players in the market. We have a freemium service, so we offer both free content and we also offer premium content that's behind a paywall. So the majority of the free content that we offer revolves around licensing acquisition. The Middle East is predominantly a free-to-air market, so the majority of the content produced and aired in the Middle East is being released straight to free-to-air. This is the nature of the market. It is what it is. But with that, there's always been a scarcity in premium content and content that's designed for pay. And so in order for us to kind of really be able to push for subscriptions, our focus has been focused on original content. So we've been working on original content for a while now. We actually just announced a couple of new releases coming up in the months to come. But our real focus is revolving around original content because this is an area where we feel there's a massive gap in the market. There's a lot of audience segments that are not being addressed, most especially the young Gen Z and millennials, which we tend to focus on. And this is how we feel we can differentiate ourselves from the rest of the industry, whether it's other OTT or pure play players or broadcasters and incumbent media organizations in the region. So
Mustafa, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, sure. On the other side, from Jawi, as part of a telecom group, we are coming from a media group. So by default, we have our own content coming up from the UMS, United Media Services, the biggest media company in Egypt, accounts for like 70% of the production from the country. So we have the advantage to sign long-term deals with the content acquisition from the broadcasters and production houses here in Egypt at the beginning, and definitely want to expand it into the region and very soon internationally as well. But also, we cannot just rely on the content coming up from the broadcasters and traditional ones, because not only of the format of the long format or short format, but about the topics and how deep can we go for the digital formats with that. So we run very fast toward the original content as well, and we started to produce this year, 2020. We already produced 2, and the 3rd will be launched next week. We have a massive production plan for the next year as well. So to mix between whatever you have to acquire, to get from the market, from the blockbuster in production, whether movies, drama, or whatever it is, documentaries, plays, and produce your own. On top of that, we might be one of the trials to mix between the entertainment and sports. So we acquired as well the exclusive digital rights of the Egyptian football League Cup and Super Cup for so many years. So we are mixing between the live for the games and with all the acquainted studio shows and everything about the sports with the entertainment, drama, movies, and so on. So.
Yeah. Okay. So just as you mentioned, local content production, as you know, like big international players like Netflix are envisioning the region. And I recently read that they are starting, partnership, collaboration, even with Saudi content producers. So there's definitely an interest in local content production. Danny, from your view from Starzplay, are there initiatives to venture into local content production? So can you share some comment on this from your perspective?
Yeah, look, I think when we look at our platform and we look at what's worked for us on the Hollywood content side, what really drives acquisition for your platform is when you have something exclusive on your platform and when you have something that's first run, has not been seen somewhere else. So, a lot of our Hollywood acquisition to date has been on the exclusive first run side. And that's led us to sort of build real traction in terms of growth on the subscriber numbers. Now, as we go forward, we see, as we look to localize our platform further from our Hollywood offering, we think that there is, a clear chance and a clear opportunity in producing local Arabic content. The value chain in terms of producing Arabic content is still very good. The cost of production per hour is very, very good versus many other territories in the world. And there are many sort of great stories, I think, out there to be told, that haven't had a chance to be produced yet. So for us, we had actually our first Arabic original, if you like, in 2020, a show called Baghdad Central that we released on the platform. We had a really sort of great success with that. So in 2021, we will be producing at least 2 shows, we hope, maybe more in 2021. And we do see the exclusivity of these shows giving us, being a very, very strong acquisition driver for the platform.
Okay, it's great. Abe, you want to add any comment on this from your perspective?
So, of course, if we're in the Middle East and primarily Arabic content is definitely the go-to content. If you want to be able to hit scale, like focusing on Western content and Hollywood content is definitely I would say kind of niche. There is, of course, a lot of demand on it, and all research and everything tells us that, of course, Arabs do want Hollywood content. But if you really want to be able to scale viewership and scale subscribers on the service, Arabic is definitely the way to go. We actually do both. So we do focus mostly on Arabic, but we also offer a variety of other content. So, and primarily South Asian content and Southeast Asian, because this is our strength in other markets. As you know, View exists in Southeast Asian markets. So we do produce a lot of originals in these markets. So we have a lot of content coming out of Indonesia, Myanmar, Thailand. So we have access to that content. It's original content. It's exclusive to our platform. So, and of course, Korean, which is we're very, very famous for across other markets. So that content does work for us. And we do see a lot of traction. However, there has to be a focus on Arabic content and Arabic production. And this is what we've been doing over the past years and trying to really scale up the production on the Arabic front.
Yeah, that's great. So we are talking a lot about content, but one of the key elements of the OTT proposition is the variety of devices, of connected devices that we have, from the web console, from smartphone, connect smart TVs, which is the latest addition to this platform, as well as gaming console. These type of devices are more catering, let's say, for a younger audience traditionally, while linear TV stays more with a more mature audience. So I just want to, tap into your customer base and to your subscriber profile, because I think this is very interesting, to see how you guys are identifying your audience and how you are addressing your audience. So starting with JP, who are your subscribers? How you identify them? And what, age group mostly you target, So it's true this OTT is a millennial only game, or there is also other opportunities in these segments?
Yeah, sure. Look, to give you an answer, I think you need to understand a little bit about Jowie. We have two products within Jowie TV. We do have a B2B service, which is very much attached to an operator triple play. And as a consequence, we have a segment in our subscriber base that is the home segment. And so, when we target that group, you're talking largely to large screen, and it's a very much a linear consumption model in that landscape. Now that's on traffic, but not necessarily on eyeballs. So if you think about the two measures there, we've got how much are people watching and how many are people watching. In the how many space, a lot of our home users still use VOD. 70–80% of our subscriber base typically go in and do a VOD consumption in the course of a month. But in terms of the overall volume, our linear channels dominate in terms of the consumption. And I think that's partly because of the nature of recommendations. And if you think about the history of what a channel is, you put on a channel, it puts on a series of assets for you to consume over the course of a time. And then over time, as we got to more channels, the channels became more specific and more niche. So you have NBC Action, which is very targeted to a specific genre with a type of show. If you fancy watching that, you turn it on and away you go. As we move into the new OTT universe, and you've got the likes of on-demand, where we are starting to move towards is how do you link those assets in an on-demand environment through your recommendation to then try and get onto what I call a daisy chain of assets to create what is like a traditional channel. So we don't have the rights to automatically start the recommendation, but if you did, you'd virtually do what you do now on a music station, which is I pick a song, I turn it into a radio station and I let it run, which is kind of the YouTube model, right? So, we are starting to see that transition. We're starting from different places. For Jowie TV Home, it's very much a, a residential landscape. It's the home, it's the primary screen. In the OTT landscape, it's not, it's a different access type. It's a user, it could be a mobile account. The way that you enter into that universe of choice is quite different, and therefore what you're doing on it is quite different. We tend to see on smaller screens, people flip into series. We tend to see on larger screens, people flip into movies or into linear. So it's very much about how large that screen is and what you're doing at that point in time.
Yeah. Danny, you want to add some comments from Stars Play on your customer audience?
Yeah, I think when you look at our audience generally ranges between people between the age of 15 and 45 is basically our audience. I think, this assumption that OTT products are just for young people is not necessarily true anymore, I don't think. I think OTT has become, over the last few years, a mainstream viewing product for customers. So, we see that actually these days that there's, a wide reach of segments that can go after our product. We may have been more targeted at a younger generation 4 or 5 years ago when we launched, versus today we see it's a much wider segment of customers that sign up for our product today. And I think, in terms of sort of the customer viewing experience and acquisition. So when we look at acquisition for us, 90% of our customers we acquire through, mobile advertising, either that be app download advertising or via the mobile web. So their access point, if you like, into hearing about Stars Play is through their mobile, generally through they're looking at sites and they see our adverts, or they see us via a YouTube advert and stuff like that. So this is generally, the place they hear about Stars Play. But what we see is the place where they watch Stars Play is more often than not their big screen. So around about 65% of our viewing today comes either on a, you know, a Samsung TV, an LG TV, a Sony PlayStation, or one of these devices. So it's become, again, and we've seen that mix change over time, where I think maybe a few years ago, smart TV was a bit of a gimmick almost a few years ago. Now it's really becoming a mainstream product in the home for people to use. So we've seen over time across, again, our audience segment, that growth in smart TV consumption, and, you know, still heavy mobile use, but that growing, you know, that growing use within the big screen. And as I say, I think it's, as a product, you know, OTT is becoming more and more of a mainstream product. I think it's becoming less and less of a niche product as it was 5 years ago. People are much more aware of the category now, much more use the category, and much more forms their main entertainment experience in the home.
Okay, sounds great. Abe, you want to add something from view perspective on the customer base?
I agree with everybody, and I think yes, we cannot, of course, say that OTT is a young man's technology. I've been in this industry for the past 12 years, and we've always seen housewives, mothers watching their soap operas and their dramas online. So the technology has proliferated a while back, and everybody now is using it. But there is a difference between who we intend to target and who actually uses the service. So yes, and it is quite broad. Everybody does use it, but from our standpoint, we tend to target a slightly younger audience segment. This is by choice, not that they're the ones available on such services. It's just we believe that, especially because we want to focus on production. And when we focus on production, we want to be able to target that specific audience segment that has been widely neglected by the mainstream media. That being said, by targeting and when we target this segment through content, that doesn't mean we alienate the rest of the audience segments. Actually, we believe that if something works for a younger audience, it's more likely to work for the older ones. And that's we've proven that over and over again with various projects that we've worked on. But when we look at a new project or a new original concept, and we want to test it, we first of all go ahead and test it with these younger audience and see how does that track with them.
Yeah, Mustafa, you want to also add your view on this, because I think this very relevant question on your customer audience, you know, to share from all of you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We have a difference here in the region, which is by nature, the traditional media here is a FTA, and this made it's different than the rest of the world. So it's not like the older generations like to subscribe for the boxes and the linear ones, and the new generations goes for OTT, but it was all FTA, and you want to shift everybody from the free viewing, whether it's on TV or digital, to the paying or subscription-based services. So actually in the past, let's say 10 years, elder people turned from the TV, the linear ones, to watch on the free digital streaming services like YouTube and Dailymotion and so on, because they are just got bored from the long ad breaks we have here in the region again on the TV. So they already started to watch on a stream on the digital sites, even the pirated one, the illegal ones. So it was the idea of shifting big portion of those, let's say 25 plus, 30 plus, from watching on the free digital, either legal or illegal platforms, to subscribe and watch on the OTTs that we are serving right now, and to attract the new generation. So we have really literally two different target audiences. The one with the TV lovers, the ones for the linears, who want to serve them with good content, blockbuster content and everything. And they are just one step away, lagging from the new generations when it comes to technology. But they are freaking good when using the applications. They can go and subscribe, they can go and pay, starting using the smart TVs and the big screens, definitely for that. The young generations, we do something similar to what Shadi was saying, which is targeting them by the original content, original production. And by that, we are targeting by the story itself, the content itself, the way we are tabbing the direction, maybe sometimes by the outfit, the language. You have a kind of a freedom to talk to those segments alone, because when you are on the broadcasting on the TV, you cannot talk to a certain segment, but on the digital, this is the beauty of having the on-demand. This is the really on-demand. So separating the two segments, like acquiring content relevant to the elder ages, those who are already on the digital, but who want to transform them from non-paying to paying customers, and produce good content for the new generation, which are very important for us because they are the future. If you got to hold them with you right now, they'll be a customer for you for like 10, 20 years, who knows? So we have, the two parallel strategies all the way with us.
Yeah, thanks, Mustafa. So talking about digital, we all know the beauty of digital is that can be measured. And, like compared to standard rating that we had before for the free-to-air channel, like we have a lot of new metrics and new parameters that you guys can measure. So starting from you, Mustafa, since we just debate, what are the measures that you put in place to define your success, in this OTT business? We know churn, new customer subscription, new customer acquisition. What are those metrics? I think, there is not a secret, but just to share.
Yeah, as you said, money comes first. So it's about the acquisition cost, the new subscribers, the retention, the churn. Those are the things you are talking about when you are measuring the health of the platform itself. But there is other measurement you have to do regarding content itself. So the stickiness of the user, how many hours he is spending on the platform, how many visits he makes in a week, and the type of content he's watching, the retention rate within each video. And these are as much important for us as the financial ones, because these are the steering wheels for the future. If you know what your customer is really watching, you will acquire smartly, you will produce smartly, and you spend marketing smartly as well. I think it's a mix. And what we are lacking right now is the unified matrices to measure your success or measure your numbers even on each platform, because we are all on closed platforms. There is no standardization to measure this, and everyone has to build his own way of measurement. But I think it's as you said, from financial, and the other from the content perspective.
Any other comment on this, on the measurement you guys want to add?
Yeah, sure. I've got there are many metrics in the industry at the moment that people are setting up to try and define success. And, I think Mustafa's touched on, two of the critical ones. Obviously, everything is towards driving money. At the end of the day, most of us are not in here as a charity. So, with that ambition in place, we try and work out what's working. And, things like what's the completion rate on the series? What's the completion timeline of that series? There's an idiom out there that says what you acquire a customer on is not necessarily what they watch. So how do you link those two things together and understand what's my acquisition model, what's my engagement model, what's the evergreen that I'm going to see? We tend to see that we're quite successful in getting people to sign up based on our exclusive films, for instance, but when they join the platform, they're probably going to jump onto NBC1 and punch out 70% of their consumption on the linear channel. So it's understanding those handover points and then trying to map them through the system. Clearly, you've got a wealth of information at your fingertips, but just trying to find those connections to see where is the transition, when does something happen, and when does that mean that user will be around for 6 months or 12 months, and how do we actually then move them into that space? We track quite a few of those within Integral, and I guess one of our challenges is that we are an aggregator and a purchaser. So we tend to have, a little bit of both worlds going on. It's possible for us to have the same asset on the platform in multiple places. And so we start to try and clean the data as well as then make sense of it.
Yeah. Abe, you want to add something, I think?
I think because really, I think they both they said it, and there isn't much to be added here. But again, when you're talking about analytics, there's so many different ways to look at it, and I don't think you could say what's more important. I think depending on different teams, what their functions are within the organization, some people are looking at lifetime value, cost of acquisition, and purely business. Some others are focusing purely on retention, on the content itself. So what's more important, the important thing is you need to look at all kinds of data, all slices of data, because you could look at the same data point from different angles and come up with completely two different insights. But really, this business is purely, I mean, the whole point of OTT is the technology is allowing us to understand our business in so many different ways that we weren't able to in the past. And it's just very liberating to be able to work in an industry where this data can empower us so much and be able to drive the business in a better way.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for clarifying this. So the next question to Danny. We have all seen that with COVID, with the pandemic, the number of hours spent at home has increased significantly the uptake of the VOD consumption. You know, like the number of subscribers for some of those platforms grow exponentially. Just one case, you know, Disney Plus reached 75 million in less than 1 year of operation, which is, far beyond any expected business model. So from your perspective and from your audience, Danny, how was the impact of COVID on the consumption and, on the traffic and on the consumer retention? Can you share some insight on that?
Yeah, I think, I try and take you, if you like, along the 3 steps of the journey that we went through with COVID, because I think there's been time now to almost go through an evolution of the COVID sort of impact on the business. So I think, the first thing that we saw clearly was, a real spike in customer acquisition. And I think what happened on the customer acquisition side that made the biggest difference, it was the organic spike in customer acquisition. We were all in the business here of a mixture of paid marketing and organic marketing. And you have a certain mix of customers you get through your paid channels, a certain mix you get organically. And what we saw during COVID time was that mix of customers coming through our organic channels, our direct channels, really, really grew. So, whereas we might generally run 35, 40% of customers through organic channels, we were running 75, 80% of customers coming through organic channels at much, much higher volumes than we'd ever seen before, 3-4 times the volume of customers coming on and being acquired by the platform than we'd seen before. So initially we saw that, large influx of customers coming through those 3 channels. When they came to the platform, I think, then we clearly saw that consumption increase. And I think this is where, again, technology is a great thing on OTT. We're all, I think in this room have a business that's, generally driven by cloud-based services. So we were able to scale up, if you like, to meet the demands that we saw coming from our customers. I mean, the consumption on an individual customer level, we saw 2.5-3 times the daily consumption on an individual customer level. When you add that to all the new people coming onto the platform, we were really seeing content spikes that we'd never seen before on our platform. And that was really across sort of all our categories, whether that's series, whether that's movies, kids, right across the platform experience. And then I think there's then been the sort of the post-COVID experiences, trying to retain this spike of customers that came in, during that peak, if you like, between March, say April and May. You had a lot of people coming onto your platform, a lot of people being exposed and using your platform. And then it's been a case of then looking to retain those customers that came to our platforms in that period, so a large influx in. And then without some of the retention and the lifetime activities that we have, you can see also a large, influx of customers going out. Even some of the, businesses that you would associate with a low churn rate in the US, like Hulu, have reported churn rates of 30-40% on a monthly basis. So it's been an interesting time. It's been a time of big numbers, whether that's new, whether that's consumption, whether that's churn. It's been a time of very different numbers. And it's been a time, I think, of really relying on some of the processes and the churn models and the acquisition models that you built over time, and actually, making best use of them to execute well, I think, during this time to maximize the long-term value that you can gain from the business, not just having if you like, a short-term spike in consumption and numbers, but actually seeing a long-term sort of gain in your business. And I think that the other thing that happened for us at Starzplay, I mean, I think our brand gained an awareness among customers that, would have cost us tens of millions of dollars in brand marketing to gain. because people were out there looking for these services, because they were pursuing these type of products, I think we built a new level of brand awareness that otherwise, potentially, would have taken us a lot longer to get to that position. And again, I think that's like that for all the platforms. I think customers were out there looking for these services, looking for these products, looking for the best content. So it's been an interesting time. And I think, as we look at it now today, it's really about that, continuing that retention gain. But obviously working now in an environment where we see a much higher brand awareness, fortunately, for our products, which is a good thing.
Yeah. JP, you want to add something?
Look, I think I share the sentiment. We certainly saw a spike. And it was double whammy this year because it was lockdown and Ramadan, and so we have our peak seasonal period running into a period where everyone is forced to stay indoors. So consumption metrics, particularly in our home base, were the highest I've seen anywhere. I don't have any global benchmarks, but I'd like to put money on the fact that we may have taken the first place for the most consumption average across a large audience in a month, particularly during the May period. So yeah, look, I'm the same with Danny. We saw viewership increase. We saw the viewership per user increase. And we've seen the slowdown since. So we've seen the post-Ramadan reduction. I am curious to understand, and this is something we'll look to in the next couple of years, and it's about your profile of subscribers. So as a Arab-first content proposition, we tend to see slightly more of a fluctuation in our seasonality around Ramadan than potentially other services like Netflix, OSN, or even Stars, whose content proposition is less oriented towards that genre. And so I'm curious to see if that plays out in the way that we think it does. We tend to drop a little bit harder and then move ahead, and then we see that cyclical fashion year on year. And it's like Danny says, it's how do you retain more and more of those users year to year? How do you get something more relevant in front of them at the right time? And that's the challenge that we move forward with COVID. But again, the search, the organic growth in that period was absolutely staggering.
Yeah. Mustafa, you want to add something?
Just as was JB saying, lockdown and Ramadan had made it crazy in terms of consumption. The spike everywhere in the world, the spike in the acquisition, it's okay. But I mean, the consumption was high. I can just add one example. Parts of the world, we saw consumption of an average of 4 hours a day during that period. So it's insane. But people, we know they are locked down in a remote area. They are not in the it's not a luxury anymore. They can just spend time with the content, and you have that time. We was releasing 15 new titles every day. So for them, there's a huge catalog to consume. So I don't think in the future we're gonna see the same level easily of the same spend because
we hope not for the same reasons anyway.
Yeah, no, we don't want to see it for the reason actually.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Abe, you want to add something from from your perspective as well?
I agree with everything everyone said. The one caveat would be that we've noticed a lot of variances between different parts of the world and different markets, even within the Middle East. So I can say that, for example, how people in Egypt reacted to COVID and the lockdown varied so differently than people in Saudi and UAE. So because each of the markets on the ground, people reacted differently. So whether there was a full lockdown or there wasn't, whether people took it very seriously early on or not, and how the government's position was. So there was a lot of variations between different markets and how they reacted. And until today, and you were seeing these variations continue all the way until today. Of course, there was an increase, but I could say that that there's seriously a lot of variations between different markets and how that increase actually took place. Of course, Ramadan, and I think we need to, if we really want to look at COVID, we need to take out Ramadan out of the equation, because Ramadan, without COVID, we're always going to see 200, 300, sometimes 400x growth, because this is when 90% of the annual content is being released. But if you really want to take a look at the impact of COVID, you have to subtract Ramadan and look at how this trend was before and after. I think the majority of the growth that we saw was because of Ramadan. I wouldn't say it was because of COVID. Actually, we saw the increase in COVID happening on library content rather than new content. And we were trying to measure, okay, old content that is not just released recently, content that's been on the library, on the shelf for a while. How did that content get impacted? And we did see an increase in that kind of content outside Ramadan, which does show that there was a growth, but it's really how do we make sure that we're measuring the right things and in isolation?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Next question, we start, with you, Abe, since you are already discussing, is about the monetization model. We all know that the OTT brought new business model, basically the AVOD, which commonly is quite the most challenging unless you are YouTube, it's most difficult to get advertising. The SVOD, that is the, de facto the business model that the big players, the Netflix, the Prime Video, the Disney Plus, they mostly all go directly to the SVOD model. The TVOD, which might work, the transaction VOD, which might work well for some sports content, or what is coming now is the premium VOD for special release, premiere movies that cannot go on cinema and they go straight to OTT, and so they come up with the price tag associated. Yeah. And then there's the aggregator. The role that telco players, they want to have in this arena, maybe mixing up their IPTV proposition together with other players, like, for example, Amazon has been offered on some of the international telco providers, as a retention, Amazon Prime Video as a retention strategy, or partnership and collaboration that are coming from the region itself. So what's your view and what is actually works for you in terms of the monetization strategy?
Okay, so our business model is a freemium business model, and by freemium it means that our objective is to have it's an SVOD model. However, we do offer a lot of content for free in order to drive people into subscriptions. We believe this really works for us because, first of all, if you look at the markets we operate in, especially the Middle East, it's predominantly a free-to-air market. People are not used to paying for content. So that's one aspect. The audience not willing to pay for content has always been there. Second, there isn't enough content that people are willing to pay for. So you have a supply issue as well, and that's going to take time to build, and changing that mindset is going to take some time. A lot of the content that we're acquiring from a licensing perspective is already available for free. So putting that content behind a paywall and say, guys, this is good enough for you to pay for, is challenging. So as we build our value proposition, as we build the value for people to subscribe, and that's going to come through originals. Western content is definitely an option because that's always been controlled and windowed properly. And it's a matter of time as well. I always say to everyone, the SVOD business in the Middle East is a marathon. It's not a race, okay? And it's going to take some time, and you need to invest in the audience. We believe that today, cultivating an audience base that is not paying today or does not have the means to pay or is not convinced to pay yet, can pay you 2 years down the line. But if you build that behavior of them starting to use these services, and then over time, it's easy to convert them. So it is a matter of cultivating an audience base that can later subscribe. And of course, you've got a base that is already willing to subscribe today. And that's what we're really focusing on. So we believe our business model is a freemium model, which is a combination of AVOD, but with a greater focus on SVOD.
Yeah. Okay. Mustafa, you want to share your view?
Yes, I think it was one of the most challenging markets, Egypt, as the most free market and the region here, and the most dominant one when it comes to production. So whatever is trying to do in the GCC, for example, North Africa, by pushing the SVOD, it come to fail here in Egypt with the content being available, whether on the TV for free or on YouTube and so on. So if we get some credit for Watch It, is to regulate this scene by forcing most of the content on acquisition. By acquisition, I mean on exclusive base, to be on SVOD. So we could shift lots of the mindset of the customers that the content is no longer for free. I'm not saying that they all run and subscribe with Watch It or with Veo, Stars Play, Joey, or whoever it is, but I mean, they just realize that, okay, this content costs a lot, and from now on, we have to think of subscribing in the good platform. As Shadi was saying, there is no enough good content to make it as originals right now to push people to subscribe. So you still have to have your own cut or own share from the acquisition of the other content production. But I do believe there is lots to be done with partners. Partners is not only telcos. We have telcos, yes, on the hand, but I mean the banking sectors here for the digital transformation, or the cashless societies all over the region here, pushing people to start to use their own credit card and debit card and the wallets and everything. So we have incentive right now, not only for the data with the telcos, but maybe for the payment. Also, as well, there is the retailers, the FMCGs. We saw it coming from the west side of the world, but I mean, I think it will be pushed much faster because these guys can facilitate the freemium model that Veo is trying to do. I mean, by giving content for free, the content is costing a lot, and if you want to mix people between the AVOD and SVOD, keep it as SVOD and go for the freemium with the partners. One last point to comment on, which is the premium. There is a huge resistance in the market from the producers to avoid releasing movies specifically on the theaters. They see it as the core of the industry to have it on the theater and have people watch it on the cinemas. So I think we are moving faster with the premium, maybe on the sports events, yes, maybe on the releasing new drama, maybe prior to the TV or as originals. But the movies, there's a real resistance from the producers right now. I don't know what happens next years when the industry coming back to the norm of without COVID, hopefully. So we're gonna see how the market will move.
Yeah, JP.
I think the guys have touched on quite a lot of it. You know, the way I look at it is, you know, is there value in the product, right? And then who will pay for it? So when you look at your distribution models, operators will subsidize your service if they see value in it indirectly for themselves. If we were selling printers and they were selling print cartridges, you know, it's in their interest to give away the printer because they will make money indirectly through that business model. That is just one of the mechanisms that you consider in an OTT service when you do a partnership through a telco distributor. Other ones will be prepared to buy it, yeah, and you may pay for the convenience of it. There are things about your service that are not related to the content that you're interested in selling as a part of that feature. You know, the whole universe of casting 4K download, no interruptions, recommendations, playlists, linking to social, all of these value drivers sort of substantiate your service beyond the content itself. Content is an interesting one, and I think you know, it's the maturity of the industry in this region in terms of its distribution model. So how does it sell through each of those gates into when it would be available on a subscription video on demand service? And, you know, I think Mustafa alluded to, you start in cinemas and then you move on to the next mechanism, which used to be potentially transactional video, or into hotels, onto airlines, and so on and so on and so on. You know, those things have sort of been disrupted these days, and there's piracy in amongst all of that. So, you know, it's not very long from when first released to when someone can get it anyway. So you play these things off each other, and suddenly you've got this, you know, this kind of mess of issues that you're trying to work out what to do. The last one that's quite complicated out here is affordability. So it's not easy. We're using heavily reliant on mobile subscription payments for users to be able to purchase the service. There's not many other mechanisms available to OTT services out here. Credit card penetration is quite low. You can look after things like banks, but you end up in different systems. So, you know, we're reliant on the balance of a wallet for someone to pay for the service. And so as a consequence, you're very much forced into a scenario where you're trying to work out how to work with an operator, how to work out what the frequency of your charging model would be. Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it some other mechanism? And then are there things that we can do in the interim where we could do microcharging and so on, just to keep that subscription alive in the subscription business model? So it's a complex area. I quite enjoy it because it's, you know, there's always a new problem that you're trying to solve, but the value, the assets, you know, I think we have seen that FTA dominated the production space. And so that makes local content quite hard to put a value against. It's very, very popular. It drives engagement, but does it drive a sticker price? And that's the question that you've got.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the challenge. Then last question for you guys before we finish with this panel today is about, you know, the future challenges and innovation. So I would like to ask Danny, what you see as, you know, the evolution of OTT in terms of competition, but also in terms of innovation. There's a lot of talk of user experience. I'm reading about watch parties, you know, like, so using stream with other friends to watch the same movie at the same time, you know, search capabilities, content recommendation. So what's your view on that, Danny, and the other panelists will try to, you know, wrap up with this, you know, view on the future of OTT.
Yeah, and I mean, I look for sort of Stars Play in particular. I think there's a couple of things we're looking at in terms of technology going forward. I think, you know, number one, the biggest challenge that we probably, I would imagine, all face in this room is how to get the right content still in front of the right customers. You know, you have 8,000 content assets and only so much space available on your app to show these content assets, you know. So I think for us, the challenge that we're still trying to sort of overcome and use technology to help us with is really how we, if you like, merchandise content almost, you know, how we look at, say the way the e-commerce environment is built, and how do we merchandise our content? How do we get the right content in front of the right customer? How do we use our library to keep people interested in our platform, keep them coming back and keep them watching something that they really, really like? So I think for us, we're doing a lot of work around our recommendation engine, around and it's not always just about, I suppose, the clever things of technology, if you like. Everyone likes to talk about algorithms and all the sort of amazing buzzwords that are around at the moment. But actually, you know, technology can just be about getting your, simple as your metadata right. You know, having the right tags on your metadata to drive the technology that you have. If I look at us at Stars Play over the years, we've, you know, seen so many very clever tools come along. And you think, oh, wow, this is the great new tool that's going to, you know, change this or change that. And, you know, suddenly the numbers are going to go up. But really, unless you use it properly, integrate it with your data, you build out properly the usage of these tools, they don't have the impact that you expect. So I think, you know, for us, it's really making sure that the building blocks of the platform are there, making sure that we can utilize the technology that we have today and get the best from that before we start, you know, worrying about, I've seen the watch parties idea on Disney, but I think we still want to make sure we get some of the more fundamental building blocks optimized and working well for customers before we start watch parties. I think as much as they look a nice idea.
Yeah. Any last comment, guys, on the future of OTT?
I think we have a massive thing to work on, which is reducing the delivery cost of the content itself. We're using the edge servers, whatever it is, nodes you can use, and integration with telcos is not only about the payment, it's about the delivery, the last mile delivery, as we call it. And it's in the supply chain thing, it's the most important one, the quality and the cost as well. And I think we didn't start, we want all to work into more interaction, because digital is interaction. The OTTs right now is still broadcasting. We are not interacting with people on shows, maybe on the live ones to get them hooked up and be part of your shows, not yet being implemented. I think the focus on drama. I think it's a way to make it something of a habit, a lifestyle with you to go and watch the show on the OTT much better than on TV, or maybe surpassing the TV by itself as an experience.
Okay. I would like to thank you, all of you guys, for this insightful discussion and for all the learning that we gain from the panel today. And I will leave the word to Shana to conclude the conference for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela, and thank you to all of our sponsors, speakers, and moderator for participating in our first edition of the Nextv series MENA. Just so you know, the video on demand are already available on the online platform Swapcard, and also soon it will be available on that Access website as of tomorrow morning. So there are more similar virtual events coming up in 2021 that we are putting together. So please register on the Data Access website for more details. Thank you again and good afternoon.